Never said that. Stop lying, he yelled. I'll get in trouble with my dad if I'm late. And now it's your fault. I'm not lying. I woke you up at least 20 times. Your alarm was going off the whole time, too, I argued. I tried to tolerate his irrational scolding, but I finally started pushing back. It led to a huge fight where he said he wanted a divorce. Our in-laws stepped in and helped us avoid a big breakup, but I was getting tired of him throwing around the word divorce over every little problem. One day, while I was getting ready for another business trip, David looked at me with a sad expression. Hey Sophie, off on another trip? He wasn't happy about how often I went on business trips and kept calling them trips. It's not just a trip, it's a business trip. Why do you keep making me say that? I replied, frustrated. Must be nice, always going on trips and leaving all the housework for me. You're probably just sightseeing while I do everything at home, he said. That's enough, I snapped. This is for your company, why can't you just accept it's a business trip? David complained. I can't imagine what it's like to be a rookie, going on trips and doing nothing useful. It's basically a vacation for you. I was really upset. What's wrong with you? Can't you tell the difference between a trip and a business trip? David responded, well, it's true, isn't it? You say I'm stuck with the chores, but you never do anything at home when I'm away. You just leave everything for me. When I'm not home for work, David never does anything around the house. He orders takeout, leaves the laundry piling up, and doesn't even take out the garbage. His laziness makes everything even more stressful, and the divorce threats are just a reflection of his attitude. Even though we both work and spend the same amount of time on our jobs, all the housework is left to me. On top of that, David acts so superior and controlling, which I couldn't stand. Trying to talk to him about it is useless, because he never admits to his mistakes. Instead, he always blames me. As I silently continued getting ready for my business trip, David started yelling again. The future CEO's wife shouldn't be so casual about business trips. If you're not firm like me, the other employees will walk all over you. Exactly, because I'm becoming the future CEO's wife, I have to learn the job and meet with clients. That's why I'm working so hard, I replied. David continued. We live this good life because I'm the son of the CEO. You should listen to me more since it's thanks to me. I couldn't take it anymore. What are you talking about? The company is doing well because of the employees who work hard. Instead of acting like you're so great because you're the CEO's son, you should work harder. David's face turned red with anger. What did you say? What do you mean work harder? I replied, the other day, I heard employees gossiping about you. They said you always push overtime on others, dump tasks on them, and constantly complain. What? Who said that? I'll fire them immediately, David yelled. That's not the point, I said. How can you not see that you're the one at fault? You're only using your father's name. David's eyes widened with anger, and he roughly grabbed my bangs. Don't get too full of yourself. Who do you think got you this job at this company, huh? Ow, let go, I yelled. You're only working at this prestigious company because you married me, got it? He shouted. I was shocked. I've told you many times, I can't avoid this business trip. It's for work. David snapped. Shut up, don't talk back. You married me, so you should just listen to what I say. Suddenly, he let go of my hair, and I fell back onto the floor. If this argument continued, it would probably lead to another divorce scare. So, I forced David out of the room and went back to getting ready for my trip. When I get back, I'll have to clean up a whole week's worth of housework that David has ignored. I'm sure the floor will be covered with clothes again, and the trash won't be taken out. Just thinking about it made me feel exhausted even before my trip. The next day, I went on the business trip as planned. I focused on my work and didn't let personal feelings get in the way. When I came home after a week, I couldn't believe what I saw. Welcome home, I said, walking inside. The house was spotless, there wasn't a speck of dust anywhere. It looked just like it did the day I left for my trip. I thought, thank goodness, maybe David has finally understood my feelings. It seemed like he had changed and worked hard on the housework. Just as I started feeling relieved that my husband was finally helping, I saw the divorce papers on the table. What's this? I said in shock. Next to the papers was a note that said, I'm going back to my parents' place, we're getting a divorce. Panicking, I called David, and he answered right away. Did you read the divorce papers? He asked, sounding casual. His tone annoyed me, and I snapped back, wait, are you serious about divorcing me? Obviously, you'd be in trouble if I divorced you, right? He said, sounding unconcerned. Don't just casually talk about divorce, I told him. Then David said smugly, if you want to go that far, I'll set some conditions. If you stop neglecting the housework and listen to me, I might consider withdrawing the divorce, but of course, no more trips for you.
I was furious. What? It wasn't a trip. It was work. David interrupted. Are you talking back? If so, I'm divorcing you. You're such a nag. A nag? I said, stunned. He can't even do anything around the house himself, and he calls me a nag? If he wanted a divorce, I was ready for it too. Got it. If you don't want a divorce, come and apologize now, he demanded. I held back the urge to give in and replied calmly, okay, I understand. You should have done what I told you from the start. Now come quickly, he said before hanging up. Instead of going to my in-laws' house where David was, I left the house and went to City Hall. I went to City Hall to submit the divorce papers, and they were accepted without any issues. I was officially single again. 3 hours later, while I was packing up at home, my ex-husband and his mother showed up. They were probably getting impatient since I hadn't gone to their house. As soon as they saw me, they started throwing insults at me. How long are you going to keep me waiting? My ex-husband yelled. That's right, you're a failure as a wife, and here you are, out having fun instead of looking after David, his mother added. I replied, how old is David? He's older than me, isn't he? Their faces turned angry. Shut up, stop being stubborn and apologize quickly. We'll really get a divorce if you don't, my ex-husband shouted. You'll be the one in trouble if we get divorced. Sophie, you could have been the wife of the future president of the company. Are you okay with that attitude? His mother added. And if you divorce me, you'll lose this lavish lifestyle. Are you okay with that? My ex-husband asked. I didn't even care anymore. Well, I never thought you and David were a good match anyway, so I don't really care, I replied. My ex-husband grinned, looking smug. Got it. This is your last chance. If you don't apologize now, we're getting a divorce, and I'll kick you out of the company too. Make up your mind quickly. At that moment, I felt an intense anger rising inside me. I had to make him understand that he didn't know the situation. We're already divorced, you know, I said. What? They both asked, shocked. I've already submitted the divorce papers, and they've been accepted. I'm no longer your wife, I told them calmly. My ex-husband and his mother stared at me, wide-eyed and silent. After a moment, he finally spoke. What are you talking about? This is a joke, right? There's no way you would have. Why would I lie? If you don't believe me, go check the records yourself, I said. No way, he muttered in disbelief. Then his mother, who had been listening quietly, suddenly screamed, wait, Sophie, what have you done? You've put a divorce on David's record, our future CEO. It was your son who handed me the divorce papers first. All I did was submit them, I said coldly. My ex-mother-in-law quickly responded, cancel the divorce immediately. Do you understand? I'm sorry, but once the divorce papers are accepted, they can't be cancelled. Besides, I have no intention of canceling, I replied firmly. What? She asked, shocked. My ex-husband just hung his head, not knowing what to say, ignoring them both. I continued, I've had enough of being ridiculed every time I go on a business trip. I have to balance work and housework every day. To me, you're nothing more than a burden. Please, Sophie, calm down, my ex-husband begged. Calm down? I'm perfectly calm, I snapped. What's the point of being married if it's only a name? All you care about is yourself, isn't it? I didn't mean it like that, he said, but I could see he was nervous. Do you realize you're losing your place as the CEO's wife? He asked, his tone desperate. Are you okay with that? I didn't transfer to your company to become the CEO's wife, I answered. I don't know how much you've been pampered, but I didn't marry you to take care of you. Are you really ready to give up this lifestyle? My ex-husband pressed. If you just wait a little longer, you'd be the CEO's wife. I absolutely refuse to keep being your caretaker, I said, my voice steady. I'm not your mother, just go live your life on your own. My ex-husband looked like he might cry. His mother, taking a turn, stuttered her final threat. What? I asked, not surprised. If you divorce David, you'll lose your job too, she said, trying to scare me. And so what? I replied calmly. What? Both of them gasped. I've already informed your father that I'm quitting the company, I said, watching their faces drop in shock. To confirm my words, my ex-husband started calling his father. After a few rings, his father answered, and he put the call on speaker. Dad, listen to this. Sophie decided to divorce me on her own, he said. Yeah, I heard. She told me she's quitting the company too, his father replied. She's so selfish, can't you fire her immediately with your CEO powers? Well, I guess I should fire someone ASAP. You, his father said coldly. Instead of reacting like her son, my ex-mother-in-law confronted her husband, my father-in-law. What do you mean by that? She asked, clearly upset. There's nothing to explain. David's a nuisance who contributes nothing to the company. I'm disappointed in his work ethic, he said. What? How can you suddenly say that about our son? She protested. Quiet, he snapped at her. Turning to David, my father-in-law continued. Your work performance is poor. You use the company's supplies without permission, make advances on female employees, and complain about the company cafeteria. You're just no good. Do you think I don't know you're being called incompetent by your subordinates? David started to argue, but his father cut him off, saying, I can't cover for you anymore, even though you're my son. You're not getting a free ride just because you're the boss's son. David tried to defend himself, but my father-in-law said, the only thing I can commend you for is marrying a capable wife. Sophie will continue to work for the company, but you're fired, David. David's eyes widened in shock, but my father-in-law kept going, unaffected by his son's reaction. Unlike you, Sophie is meticulous in her work. She brings in a lot of contracts and is highly regarded by our clients. Many companies have contracted with us because of her. David tried to argue, saying Sophie was just assigned to business trips because she was new, but my father-in-law shot that down, saying, we sent Sophie on more business trips because we trust her, not because she's a newbie. You were making fun of her, calling it a vacation, weren't you? David protested, but my father-in-law had had enough. Let me tell you something, there's no home for you to return to until you become independent. Never come back to this house, got it? David, in disbelief, said, no, no way. And just like that, my ex-husband was disowned by his father, lost his job, and couldn't even return to his parents' house. His mother tried to defend him, but my father-in-law told her, it's because you spoiled him, and gave her a divorce notice as well. They ended up using up their savings to rent an apartment but couldn't find any work. Their unemployment continued. I still get messages from my ex-husband, Sophie, I was wrong. I won't make fun of you anymore. I promise I'll take care of myself. Please come back. I can't take it anymore. Help me. He was so persistent that I eventually blocked his number. I didn't want to deal with that mama's boy anymore. Meanwhile, I'm still working hard at the company under my father-in-law, who is now the CEO. I have my own team, and I'm having a fulfilling time at work. It's great because my father-in-law is a supportive boss. From now on, I want to focus on my own goals and not be trapped by meaningless family relationships.
You're the famous photographer. Are you shooting today? The woman in front of me is staring at me excitedly. We met on the beach during clamming season, and she seems to know that I'm a photographer. Despite her family of 3 playing in the sand, she listens intently to what I have to say. It's a poignant reminder of my early days as a rookie, when people didn't believe I was a photographer and I barely got any assignments. When I tell her that I'm here for a photo shoot, she eagerly volunteers to be the subject. But could you please not show my child's face? She says this, pointing to a cute little girl. The girl, about 2 or 3 years old, looks at us with her big, adorable eyes wide open. Of course. And what about Dad? When I ask, the father looks pale, glancing around uncertainly and giving vague replies. I guess that's understandable. After all, the dad building a sandcastle with the girl is my husband. My name is Katie. I'm a 30-year-old freelance photographer. For work, I'm often called to school events and weddings in the neighborhood. I capture moments of smiles and friendship, sharing them through my photos. It's not just about taking pictures, but about capturing people's memories and emotions, sharing their happiness. Capturing these joyous moments in people's lives is my job and my passion. But my life's shutter stopped in an instant due to a certain event. My husband, Galton, was a busy businessman. He was involved in the development of leisure facilities and tourist destinations, traveling all over the country. We couldn't spend much time together because of our busy schedules, but the time we did have was special. Even if it was just a little while, the time and smiles with him were what kept me going. I had no intention of quitting my photography. We'll build our careers while supporting each other. We promised and got married. That's when I started looking for ways to work from home instead of being out and about for shoots. First, I posted landscape and permitted portraits on social media as part of my portfolio. By showcasing my work in virtual galleries like online photo exhibitions, not only publishers and peers in photography noticed me, but also a wider general audience. This led to a rapid increase in followers. Thanks to social media, I was able to do live streams, talking about my photography and even making some money from it. I would share my photos while explaining the stories and techniques behind them. Communicating through photography was fun and fulfilling. I balanced outdoor shooting with my social media presence, steadily growing my follower base. Galton was still constantly on business trips. Inevitably, I spent a lot of time with my in-laws, who thankfully took an interest in my social media activities. As I taught them how to use smartphones and social media, we grew closer, and they often tuned into my photos and live streams. Both are wonderful people, and even when Galton was away, I didn't feel lonely and enjoyed fulfilling days. However, there was a significant void in our lives. We couldn't have children. Despite numerous tests, we were unable to conceive. We both wanted kids, so years into our marriage without a child put a strain on us. Initially supportive, Galton grew tired of the financial burden and frequent clinic visits, and I could feel us drifting apart. His involvement in a major project, requiring constant travel, didn't help. His interest shifted from our elusive treatment to his challenging work. He cared less about our childlessness, talking more about work instead. I tried to understand his busyness, but we were emotionally distant. Yesterday, I had a meeting with a client, and it looks like a new project is starting. I'll be away overnight for a while starting next week. As he unpacked dirty shirts from his large suitcase, Galton told me this. He had just gotten back, but I quickly started the laundry. Galton wouldn't bother to clean or buy new shirts otherwise. It's faster and less risky this way, he would say, but I wanted to save where I could. So, about the hospital. That's impossible. You know I have to be there in person, right? I can't leave work, so let's skip it next week. I sighed quietly, so Galton wouldn't hear. I had made an appointment, but there was nothing I could do if he was traveling. Galton's actions caused trouble for his company, and it was painful to see the work he was once praised for being overshadowed by his personal life. I never wanted to be a hindrance. But, you know, as busy as I am, it's tough. Katie, you go out for shoots too, right? Let's both keep up the good work. Yeah. Take care of yourself, Galton. I swallowed my words as he casually dismissed the topic. Maybe Galton no longer wanted children. But I was too afraid to ask. Should I accept this silently, or should I bring it up, even indirectly? The uncertainty was unsettling. I was adept at capturing people's joy and sorrow through my camera. Yet now, I was living each day unaware of my own emotions. Slowly, I felt trapped within the frame of my own photographs. One day, a fine white envelope with the logo of a famous resort company arrived at the house. It didn't seem like just any direct mail, so I hastily opened it. Inside was a voucher for a stay at a luxury hotel by the sea. Apparently for 3 people. Why was this sent to me? Feeling a stir in my heart, I quickly went to Galton. "Galton, this arrived. Do you know anything about it?" Of course, I wasn't accusing him of anything. I was careful not to sound mean, just asking naturally. Galton stopped reading his newspaper and looked at me. His expression was blank, but his gaze hardened slightly, almost glaring. I had never been looked at that way before and couldn't hide the sinking feeling in my chest. "That's for a colleague whose plans didn't work out, so it was sent to us. It's nothing strange, so can I have it back?" He reached out his hand. Without saying a word, I handed him the envelope with the tickets, and he snatched it away. But when he saw the address, he looked back at me with clear annoyance. "This is addressed to me. Don't open my stuff without asking." I was surprised and hurriedly apologized. However, it wasn't unusual for direct mail to come to my busy salesman husband. We usually disposed of the ones that arrived at home, so I was taken aback by his reaction. "Sorry, I didn't realize it was direct mail. I was just checking." "You should have asked me since I'm here today." Galton took the envelope to his room, and I couldn't ask any more about the tickets. Although I didn't fully understand why he needed to get tickets for a colleague, I had to accept his explanation. But then, half a month later, something else happened. In July, just before Independence Day, and when we had a memorial service planned at my in-laws, "I've got a long business trip," he suddenly said. I was initially speechless. A business trip? In my work, I often get requests from families or for landscape photography. But I had taken time off for the memorial service. Freelancers and even regular companies usually have Independence Day off. And so did Galton's company, at least in the past. Galton shrugged slightly and forced a smile. "It just came up suddenly. I have to work without a break. So, can you attend the memorial service for me?" I knew he took pride in his work and had been serious about his career even before our marriage. But increasingly, I found myself doubting the reasons for his work and trips. In the end, he left for work, pulling his favorite suitcase. The news reached my in-laws just in time, and while they were angry at his attitude, they made sure I didn't feel uncomfortable. "We're sorry you cleared your schedule for this. When I see Galton next, I'll give him a stern talking to," said my MIL, Helen. All I could do was give a vague smile. I was supposed to stay a few days after the service. Galton was their only child, and they didn't want me to leave too soon, so I ended up staying as originally planned. I brought my camera and took pictures of my in-laws doing housework, living their daily life, and even landscapes I don't usually focus on. I occupied my time with shooting plans, but part of me felt the absence of Galton, who should have been there. I decided to go to the beach one station away, both for work and a change of scenery. During the spring and summer holidays, the beach is lively with clam digging, and ideal family groups enjoy their time on the sands. Some people are under colorful beach umbrellas, enjoying walks and sunbathing. I walked along the beach with my camera. Suddenly, I stopped at the sound of a familiar voice, coming from a family building a sandcastle. I was glad I wasn't holding my camera. I would have dropped it at the sight. In the circle was Galton. He was with a young woman and a toddler, building a sandcastle together. They looked like a happy family, gathering white sand and shells. I couldn't believe my eyes. But the hotel voucher that had arrived at home, Galton's frequent long business trips, his indifference, it all piled up like sand before me. It would have been an ideal family scene for a photo assignment. But I couldn't believe my husband was there. The child between them looked about 2 or 3 years old. About the time I started feeling Galton drifting away. He had another family. Though I wasn't sure if the child was his, my instincts as a wife told me there was a blood connection. I felt as if a glass frame inside me had shattered mercilessly. The frame was supposed to hold our happy, smiling faces as a couple. I steeled myself and approached. Not Galton, but the woman. She was wearing a large straw hat and looked surprised when I suddenly spoke to her. I forced a smile and apologized for the abrupt approach. Then, I handed her my business card, explaining that I was a freelance photographer. The card only had my professional name, but it also included my social media contact. She looked at the card with interest, then started searching for me on her mobile phone. In the background, Galton, clearly aware of me, was frozen, staring at a spot on the beach. "Would you mind if I take a photo of your family? I sometimes do live streams showing photography tips."
"What? I know Katie. I follow you. You post mobile photography tips, right?"
She was excited, not knowing my relation to Galton, happy to be approached by a minor celebrity on social media. I was surprised she was a follower, but she was eager, even for a live stream. I hesitantly asked, and before I could finish,
"Of course."
She was already excitedly agreeing. I felt guilty, like I was deceiving her, but my goal was to document Galton's other family.
"Please teach me some photography tips for moms." "Galton, you're okay with it, right?"
Galton was caught off guard. Stammering, he tried to avoid looking at me, desperately thinking of an excuse. "We shouldn't, because of the face reveal. I'm a model for brochures, Can you just make sure my child isn't in the frame?" It turned out the other woman, Lisa, was a model I had met through my husband's company's public relations work. Of course, I agreed and adjusted my phone camera to keep the child out of the shot. I quickly set up for a live stream, pretending to teach the mother, with Galton unavoidably in the center of the frame. His forced smile was interpreted positively by viewers, quickly spreading as cute nervous dad. After the stream, I thanked them and left. But within minutes, Galton caught up with me, leaving Lisa and the child behind. I asked him bluntly,
"What are you trying to do?"
He remained silent, looking annoyed. He probably felt awkward with Lisa and came to me as an escape. I wonder what his intentions were in stopping me. Finally, he spoke heavily.
"Katie, understand me. What's there to understand without a proper explanation? It's clear enough if you look."
"Look, I couldn't help it. I had a child with her before I could with you. It's fine. Lisa's family is wealthy, she doesn't need me to marry her," Galton confessed, his defiance revealing the truth. It seemed unlikely that a young woman who got pregnant would say something so convenient. Probably, Lisa suspected he was married. "I wanted a child. But you couldn't have one. Lisa is nice, and the kid is cute, like her. But it doesn't mean I hate you or don't want to live with you." His contradictory words left me holding my aching head. Apparently, he wanted to maintain the status quo. "I won't bother you. This situation is perfect for me. Isn't this good enough?" How could it be? I should have argued back. But I was so overwhelmed I lost my voice. In my silence, he sighed in victory and was about to leave. But someone unexpected arrived. It was my in-laws.
"Galton, who are that woman and child?"
My Fael, Nathan, red-faced, confronted him. Galton flinched at their sudden appearance.
"Why? We saw the live stream notification. Who's the woman and child if you were on a business trip? Skipping a visit home for some unknown woman and a child?"
Without waiting for Nathan, Helen stepped in to defend me, showering Galton with fierce words. I was shocked. They had seen the live stream and realized something was wrong. They were stunned to see Galton as a husband with an unfamiliar woman and had rushed over. Confronted by his parents, Galton had to confess everything about Lisa and the child.
Ungrateful child.
He received a strong slap from Helen. Nathan glared at Galton with a look so fierce, I thought he might have punched him if Helen hadn't acted first. My in-laws left Galton behind and came to take me away. Following their apologies and strong encouragement, I decided to divorce. After uncovering evidence of Galton's affair with Lisa, his mistress, the matter was initially settled with a compensation agreement. However, as the divorce proceedings and investigations progressed, various facts came to light. Firstly, it was revealed that Lisa indeed knew Galton was married. Considering she agreed to continue the relationship despite being pregnant, it seemed she had prepared herself for being involved with a married man. Her motivation wasn't just financial, she likely wanted to keep Galton as long as possible. However, she genuinely didn't know that I was his wife and, upon realizing she was following me, blocked all my social media accounts. She angrily started posting on various forums, but this only resulted in more sympathy for me, as she publicly exposed herself as the mistress. It caused trouble in her own family, leading to her being nearly kicked out of her home. Desperately, she even tried to move into my former in-laws' house after I left. But they firmly refused her entry. Next, Galton's secrets began to unravel. During the compensation claim investigations, numerous women and men associated with him came to light. It turned out he had multiple affairs during his business trips, involving repeated liaisons with several women, some of whom were engaged or married. I decided to send out the data from that live stream. A little investigation would reveal that I, his lawful wife, was broadcasting, and the people in the frame were his mistress and their child. As a result, women deceived into thinking he was single, and husbands who felt their wives were stolen, were inflamed with anger and confronted Galton. He found himself facing lawsuits from every direction, with no choice but to accept them all. As more revelations about Galton emerged, Lisa, to everyone's surprise, fled with their child. Clearly out of love, she chose to escape her relationship with him. Lisa's social media uproar eventually settled down, and as her accounts disappeared, I decided to let her go. But considering her nature of boasting about affairs on social media, it was unlikely she would just vanish. True to form, Lisa started using an entirely different account. However, her posts playing the tragic heroine were quickly identified, attracting a wave of criticism. She would delete her account when things got tough, only to reappear under a new one, like a phoenix rising from the ashes. Abandoned even by Lisa, Galton's last resort was to turn to his in-laws, but they were enraged upon learning of his multiple affairs. Without any apologies and simply pleading for help, his parents decided to sever ties with their son. Following the scandal, Galton was burdened with substantial compensation payments. As the legal proceedings progressed, inquiries from his mistresses and their husbands flooded his company, complicating the situation even further. Moreover, this wasn't the worst outcome. The unprecedented scandal of his affair and child being exposed on social media was disastrous. The fact that the reveal happened during a business trip made the information spread rapidly, and the company's facilities and reviews were flooded with shocked and angry comments. The fallout from the scandal spread internally and externally, diminishing the company's trust. The executives, feeling a crisis, hastily strategized communication plans, consulting with experts due to their lack of experience in handling such situations. Meanwhile, they strictly instructed employees to provide accurate information to quell the chaos. Inquiries and condemnations from inside and outside the company poured in, and Galton's reputation plummeted. He became an outcast at work, completely isolated. Amidst the uncomfortable atmosphere, he was soon asked to resign and had to look for a new job. Originally proficient and successful in sales, he was favored by an older demographic who didn't use social media and quickly found new employment. However, his nature didn't change. Within half a year, he was involved in new scandals, such as pursuing his manager's wife and attempting to charge a shabby motel stay as a business expense. He was fired, joined new companies, and was repeatedly dismissed for causing turmoil in personal relationships. Now, he seems to be perpetually bouncing from job to job within the industry. Meanwhile, I've maintained a relationship with my former in-laws after the divorce. They've been considerate, allowing me to live peacefully. Their support was crucial for me to move on and start anew after ending my relationship with Galton. Following the divorce, I struggled with photographing children, finding it painful. My in-laws, despite being betrayed by their son, strived to present a united front, supporting me. They helped me believe that my relationship with Galton wasn't everything and that I could trust again. One day, I captured a photo of them talking peacefully. I plan to feature this photo in my upcoming online exhibition as the main piece. Although they were quite shy about it, I believe they'll be happy with it in the end.
Ah, feels so refreshing. Revived.
Ensley, my sister-in-law, as if it were the most natural thing in the world, came over to our place and sprawled out on the air-conditioned living room sofa, as usual. My daughter Mirinda, who was doing her homework, frowned in annoyance.
Let's see, haven't finished your summer project yet, have you?
Ensley peered over at the summer plan. I remember those days. With summer projects, you never really know what to do, right? In that regard, Mirinda, I'm kinda envious of you.
What do you mean?
Mirinda asked, puzzled.
Well, not many kids are born with such an interesting face like you. How about you compile something about that challenge of yours? LOL. It'd be easy, right?
Mirinda was born with a rare condition called cleft lip and palate, which resulted in splits in her upper lip and palate. She had undergone numerous surgeries over the years, but more than anything, it was the stares from others that hurt her the most. The condition made her face asymmetrical from her mouth to her nose, and the ignorant stares were painfully sharp. Why am I the only one like this? Mirinda had tearfully asked before. I couldn't stay silent at Ensley's incredibly insensitive remark.
Ensley, even if we're family, there are things you should and shouldn't say. I was just stating the facts. If she compiles something about her interesting condition, everyone will be pleased, won't they?
Ensley is laughing, saying Mirinda's condition is interesting. Without knowing how much pain and struggle Mirinda and we have gone through. Don't worry about what she says, Mirinda. I grabbed Ensley's arm, ready to forcefully drag her out of the house. That's when Mirinda stood up slowly, smiling, and said, Don't worry, Mom, I've decided. My name is Eleanor. I live with my elementary school-aged daughter Mirinda. My husband Dennis is a good husband and father, but he's away on work assignment. I'm home, Mom. I'll go wash my hands, then I'll help with chopping the vegetables. Saying this, Mirinda took off her mask. Nowadays, everyone wears masks when going out due to the pandemic. But Mirinda has been wearing a mask in front of anyone other than family since she was young. She must still feel resistance to showing her bare face. Mirinda was born with a condition called cleft lip and palate, which is not commonly known. It's a congenital condition where the upper lip and palate are split, occurring in about 1 in 1,000 births in the United States. Seeing our child for the first time, my husband and I were shocked but also vowed to protect her no matter what. Cleft lip and palate requires several surgeries, and Miranda's first surgery was just 2 months after she was born. Though the surgery closed her mouth, it didn't completely correct the distortion in her mouth and nose. Most people don't know much about this condition, which made me worried about how Miranda would be perceived as she grew up. There would surely be times when Miranda would get hurt. Still, Dennis and I discussed letting Miranda live like any other child, attending school and going to amusement parks just like her peers. The days of hospital visits must have been painful for young Miranda, who usually doesn't complain much. Miranda would become anxious before surgery, saying, "Mom." There must have been unspeakable anxiety clinging to her. She wouldn't let go of my hand until she fell asleep. As an elementary student, Miranda would come home and share various school events with laughter.
Today, Gerald in my class mimicked the teacher, and it was so funny. During lunch, we played rock, paper, scissors to see who gets the dessert of the kid who was absent, and Caitlin won. Over the last long weekend, Tyrone from the next class went on a vacation with his family. But their dad got lost while driving, and it was a huge mess.
Miranda would tell fun stories at dinner every day, but I noticed something off. None of the stories Miranda told included herself. Miranda always just tells me about things others have said or done. She never mentions doing anything with a friend herself. Despite a bad feeling, I lacked the courage to directly ask her about it. One day in 2nd grade, Miranda came home crying.
"What's wrong? What happened?"
Seeing Miranda cry, except before surgeries, surprised me. Miranda was silent, looking frustrated, but then she couldn't hold back anymore and started crying louder. "It's okay, you can cry all you want." I hugged my daughter tightly. After calming down, Miranda said, "You know, Mom," and shared feelings she had kept to herself. Even though Miranda wears a mask to school to hide her mouth and nose's distortions, she has to remove it during lunchtime. The first time they ate together, a boy sitting across from her pointed and laughed, saying, "Your face looks weird." That started it, and other kids gathered around, saying, "Really? That's funny," expressing their thoughts aloud. The teacher quickly scolded everyone, "Back to your seats," settling the situation. But from that day, Miranda felt ostracized, unable to join any friend's circle. She had been enduring this for over a year. "Why did you keep silent until now?" "Because, Mom and Dad, you always have it tough because of my condition, right? Surgeries cost a lot of money, and you have to go back and forth between the hospital and home for me. Miranda, for US." Knowing Miranda was considerate of us made me feel inadequate as a parent. Why am I the only one like this? Tears fell again from Miranda's eyes after she finished speaking. "I'm sorry, Miranda. Despite being blameless, she's had a hard time at school. Not just school. Miranda might continue to be seen strangely by others because of her condition. I blamed myself, feeling responsible for her suffering. I'm sorry, Miranda. From now on, Mom promises to be by your side as much as possible to protect you. Even for busy Dad at work, I'll be with you." I hugged Miranda again tightly. When I told Dennis after he came home, "It's hard not being there when you're going through tough times. I've let you handle all the hardship alone," Dennis also blamed himself. "It can't be helped. I'll protect Miranda's heart, and you protect our livelihood. Let's protect Miranda together." Yes, we should. We vowed again to protect our daughter. From that day, I quit my job at the apparel company and became a housewife. In 3rd grade, Miranda underwent her 4th surgery. While the first 3 surgeries were minor corrections, the 4th involved transplanting bone from her pelvis to her upper jaw. It was more extensive than before, but it made the distortion from her mouth to her nose less noticeable. making her look no different from other children. However, having bone removed from her pelvis made walking difficult for Mirinda, forcing her into a wheelchair for a while. Still, Mirinda would look at her face in the hand mirror and ask with a bright, radiant smile never seen before, "Hey, Mom. Do I look prettier now?" Seeing my daughter happy and smiling without feeling self-conscious made me happy too.
"Yes, you're very pretty, Mirinda."
I brushed her hair and spoke to her. After a while, Mirinda began serious walking rehabilitation. She almost fell during the unfamiliar rehab, but when I tried to help, "Just watch, Mom," she scolded me. Holding onto the handrail, Mirinda grimaced with each step, "This is nothing. My face looks proper pretty now. Lucky, right, never showing any signs of weakness. Does it hurt? Are you okay?" I couldn't help but worry and wanted to support her physically.
"If you always support me, Mom, there's no point in rehab."
Mirinda laughed shyly. As a result of her positive attitude towards rehab, the pain in her hips completely vanished. And she could walk on her own without needing crutches anymore. 2 years later, Mirinda was in 5th grade. There were still scars on her lips, but they were hardly noticeable and less mentioned. It seems Mirinda has grown to like looking at her face in the mirror. Upon waking up, she heads straight to the bathroom and faces herself in the mirror with a smile. She used to dislike even approaching a mirror. The memory of those times feels like a distant past, making me chuckle to myself.
"I wish I could see Dad."
Mirinda sighed. Dennis has been on a work assignment far away. We sometimes communicate via video calls, but it's not the same as having him nearby. Sherry said her family is going on an overseas trip. Frederick is going camping. Everyone seems so lucky. Despite it being summer vacation, Mirinda lamented not being able to go anywhere due to our circumstances. One day, while we were spending a holiday at home, the doorbell suddenly rang. "I'll get it." Mirinda stopped her summer homework in the living room and headed to the entrance, as I was busy with household chores and couldn't leave them. "What, Aunt again? You came back?" I could hear Mirinda's displeased voice.
"How rude. You came back? I'm your aunt, after all. Family can visit as many times as they want, right?"
Saying so, the visitor entered the house without waiting for Mirinda's consent.
"Ah, it's cool here. Revived."
I poked my head out from the balcony and welcomed the guest half-heartedly. "Welcome, Ensley." The guest was Ensley, Dennis's sister. According to Dennis, after graduating from high school, Ensley worked as an office clerk at a small trading company but ended up quitting within 3 months after being reprimanded by a senior for taking too many days off and getting into a heated argument. Now, she's living back at home.
Dad told me she doesn't even bother to look at job ads he shows her. Just throws them on the floor and spends all day playing video games.
Dennis complained about Ensley's lack of motivation. Ensley just sat down on the sofa as if it were the most natural thing in the world. As Mirinda tried to return to her homework, Ensley, fanning her sweaty shirt front to catch some air, exclaimed, "It's so hot. This weather is absolutely crazy." Ensley loudly exclaimed, disregarding Mirinda, who was trying to study. When Mirinda frowned in annoyance, Ensley did not miss it. "Am I bothering you, niece?" she asked with a creepy smile, intentionally disturbing Mirinda. Mirinda just sighed without engaging, knowing from experience that arguing would only encourage Ensley to be more annoying.
"Mirinda, I'd like something cold. Auntie's thirsty,"
Ensley said in a cloying voice and hugged Mirinda. "Please stay away, it's hot." Mirinda pushed Ensley away with a calm voice as she tried to lean on her, and Ensley clicked her tongue.
"What's with you? No charm at all." Eleanor, don't you have something to drink?
I took out coffee from the fridge, poured it into a cup, and handed it to Ensley.
Could you keep it down a bit? Miranda is studying.
I admonished Ensley in a low voice, though I knew it was futile.
You know, I always wonder.
Ensley looked around the room and poked Miranda's cheek with her finger, asking, "Why doesn't Miranda study in her own room?" Seeing Miranda swat her hand away, Ensley laughed as if amused.
To save on electricity.
Miranda answered irritably.
Saving on electricity. So that's why you're scrimping? Mom isn't working, right? That's why you guys are poor.
Miranda slammed her hand on the table in frustration.
Don't compare me to someone who doesn't work despite being old enough. Are you talking about me? Wow, Miranda, that's harsh. Your mom doesn't work outside either. Always lazing around at home just like me, right? That's not true. Mom is busy being a housewife. She's always cooking, cleaning, doing laundry. There's a lot to do. She's not lazy like Aunt.
Miranda retorted with a firm stance.
Really? Even Miranda is being cold to me? Listen, my parents are like, if you want to use the air conditioner so much, pay the high electricity bill yourself. Can you believe that? Living with family and they say that? It's your own fault for not working and just lazing around and playing in your room all the time. Well, it's not like I can pay for that. Going to cafes costs money, department stores are far and a hassle. So in the end, the only place I can rely on is Miranda's house.
Despite Miranda's reluctance, Ensley hugged her again. This is how Ensley would come over unannounced, trampling over our lives every time. Even though she's Dennis's sister, I couldn't bring myself to forcefully kick her out. When I consult Dennis, who's away on his own, he says, kick her out immediately. If it comes to it, calling the police is fine. But she's still family, and I couldn't bring myself to do that. Taking advantage of my inability to stand firm, Ensley has been getting increasingly bold lately. Anyway, Eleanor, you've got it easy, right? Because you can just play around at home every day. I'm not taking it easy at all. I snapped back at Ensley, irritated. After engaging more than I should have, I calmed down and realized I shouldn't have. Predictably, Ensley got even more encouraged. It's fine to slack off, right? Just buy whatever you like from the grocery store for meals, and for cleaning, just quickly tidy up the places that catch the eye. That's what I would do, LOL. She suggested I take shortcuts in my role as a housewife.
Don't compare me with Aunt. Besides, it's annoying because of her I can't concentrate on my studies. Can you just go home?
Miranda protested strongly. Oh, scary. Ensley exaggeratedly shivered.
So, Miranda, what have you been studying? Should I help you? I might be able to teach you addition or subtraction.
I've already learned that, thank you. Please, just go home. Oh. What's this? Your summer project isn't finished yet. Ensley peered over at Miranda's planner. I remember those days. With summer projects, you never really know what to do, right? It's hard to find something you actually want to research. In that regard, Miranda, I'm kinda envious.
What do you mean? Well, not many kids are born with such an interesting face like you. Why don't you compile something about that condition? It'd be easy, right? LOL. It's about yourself, so you wouldn't have to research much.
I couldn't stay silent at my sister-in-law's incredibly insensitive remark.
Enough, Ensley. There are things you should and shouldn't say, even if we're family. Oh, scary, scary. I was just stating the facts. If she compiles something about her interesting condition, everyone will be pleased, won't they?
Ensley is calling Miranda's condition interesting. Laughing, without knowing how much pain and suffering Miranda and we have gone through.
Miranda, don't worry about what such a person says.
I grabbed Ensley's arm, trying to drag her out of the house with all my might. That's when Miranda stood up slowly and said with a smile, "Don't worry, Mom. I've decided." In contrast to me, who was about to explode with anger, Miranda was completely calm.
Well then, Miranda, I don't quite understand, but your mom seems really angry, so I'll leave.
Ensley said without a shred of remorse, smirking creepily as she prepared to leave. I wanted to unleash my anger on her, but Miranda pulled at the hem of my shirt, stopping me.
You too, Mom, shouldn't worry about what that person says.
Looking at the suddenly quiet entrance after Ensley left, Miranda spoke. She must have some plan in mind. Thinking this, I managed to suppress my anger. 3 months passed.
Miranda, it's okay to relax a bit.
Saying that, the national newspaper reporter eased the slightly tense expression on Miranda's face. Dressed in new clothes bought for this day, Miranda smiled with confidence.
That's the spirit.
You're doing great. Praised by the handsome reporter, Miranda's cheeks flushed slightly. 3 months ago, I couldn't have imagined Miranda being interviewed by a national newspaper. The interview took place in a small cafe in the neighborhood, which we had reserved. The owner, who I've known for a long time, whispered to me, "Hasn't Miranda become quite beautiful?" Indeed, the last time the owner saw Miranda was before her 4th surgery. As Miranda's mother, always watching her closely, it was hard for me to notice. But acquaintances who saw her without a mask after a long time were often surprised. Miranda's treatment had progressed so much that her facial structure from her mouth to her nose was indistinguishable from other children's. Of course, some surgery scars remained, but they were hardly noticeable unless pointed out.
Let's take one last photo.
Smile. Prompted by the reporter, Miranda smiled broadly without her mask. 3 months ago, on the night Ensley left, Miranda declared to me,
"I've decided on my summer project theme. I want everyone to know about me. I'll do what Aunt suggested."
She didn't seem bothered by Ensley's words. In fact, she seemed more radiant than before.
"Is that okay with you, Miranda?" I asked.
Laughing a little, Miranda said, "Mom, you're always overprotective. I'm not the crybaby I used to be. This is something I've decided to do myself." Seeing my daughter so full of confidence, I felt reassured.
"All right, then I won't stop you. Go ahead as you think is best, Miranda." "Okay, got it."
From that day, Miranda began to confront her condition of cleft lip and palate again. Shortly after starting elementary school, she had been teased by classmates about the shape of her nose and mouth. Suffering in silence because she couldn't tell her parents. She compiled the numerous surgeries she underwent and the teasing into a booklet, including photos from those times. There's one photo that is particularly meaningful to me. It was taken the day Miranda first opened up to us about the mean things said at school. Although she protested, "No, don't take a picture," I took it anyway.
"Why did you take a photo?"
She protested tearfully, but I hugged her tightly.
"Someday, we'll look back at this day and laugh, Miranda."
At the time, Miranda couldn't understand and just cried out of frustration. Afterward, we discussed why people hold such prejudices. We concluded that prejudice stems from ignorance. Indeed, cleft lip and palate is a rare condition, affecting 1 in 1,000 people. But with ongoing treatment, one's appearance can become indistinguishable from others. We hoped that more people knowing about the condition and its treatment would reduce the instances of patients being viewed strangely. That became our family's unified wish. In advancing her summer project, Miranda set up a special website and conducted a survey for children suffering from the same condition and their parents. This revealed that other families, like ours, were troubled and pained by prejudice. Good luck, Miranda. You're very brave. If there's anything we can do, just let us know. I realized Miranda had many supportive comrades suffering from the same condition. Mom, thank you for giving birth to me. Thank you for raising me. Because you supported me, I was able to get this far. Miranda whispered, looking at the photo. The hard worker is you, I replied. Miranda had undergone numerous surgeries since she was very young. Especially the fourth surgery, which involved transplanting bone from her pelvis to her upper jaw, was the most challenging, leaving her unable to walk on her own for a while, but she never complained. She is truly a strong child. Of course, I feel like hiding my face with a mask. But I've come to think that this unique aspect of mine could be considered cool. Miranda said confidently. A month after summer vacation ended, Miranda came home from school and said, "Look. My summer project was highly praised at school, and I was awarded this certificate." She showed me the certificate, breathless and sweaty from her excitement. My friend said I was cool. Miranda happily shared her school experiences. A month after that, a newspaper company contacted us for an interview. I read the interview article. Miranda, you're amazing. Miranda's article was published in a national newspaper, catching the eye of Dennis, who was on a work assignment. He immediately video called us. If you were going to be published, you could have told me. I was just reading the newspaper when suddenly I see Miranda's face all over it. And I spit out the coffee I was drinking from surprise. It wouldn't have been fun if I told you beforehand. I wanted to see your reaction without saying anything first. So, I fell for the surprise, huh? Dennis laughed heartily over the video call. Miranda peeked out and said, "Are you happy to see your daughter's face after so long, Dad?" Well, yes. But, you really gathered courage to compile something about your condition, didn't you? Then, Miranda's smile faded, and she answered seriously. I presented it because I wanted to reduce the number of people who, like Aunt, say hurtful things out of ignorance about diseases and disabilities. Ensley? Did she say something to you? We revealed the hurtful things Ensley had said to Miranda during her summer visit. That girl. Dennis sighed. I'll give her a piece of my mind. The next day, we received a call from Mael. I read Miranda's article. It's amazing, Miranda. But I heard Ensley said terrible things. Dennis called me yesterday, and I was shocked. Luke is furious. He's been saying he won't forgive Ensley since yesterday. I'm worried his blood pressure might go up. But Ensley really is trouble. Mael said, promising to make Ensley apologize soon. A few days later, Ensley came to visit as promised. Are you there? If you are, come out already. She banged on the door so hard I worried it might break, not seeming like she came to apologize but rather irritated. When I went to answer, there stood Ensley, looking devilish. What are you doing on your own? She protested, not apologizing but complaining instead. I had no idea why Ensley was so angry. When I remained silent, thanks to your daughter stirring things up, I got yelled at by my parents and bro. Now I feel uncomfortable at home. How are you going to take responsibility? She demanded. Apparently, Ensley had been severely scolded by my in-laws and Dennis because of Miranda's project. But I thought it was all Ensley's fault. Unable to hold back my anger at Ensley's lack of remorse, I exploded. Enough, Ensley. If you're not here to apologize, please leave. I finally let out the anger I had been holding back, even to Ensley, who kept repeating her arrogant attitude. For the first time, I openly protested, leaving Ensley momentarily taken aback.
Whether you're my husband's sister or whoever, anyone who hurts my precious daughter is not family. Don't come to our house again. You're nothing but trouble. What? Getting angry all of a sudden? Silly. Even though I came to apologize, you're kicking me out. Fine then. I'll tell the family you're a stubborn DIL. Just remember that.
Miranda interjected while listening beside me. Aunt.
I'm recording our conversation, so lying is useless.
It'll be found out soon anyway, she said, admonishing Ensley like a child who won't listen.
Oh well. I guess I'll forgive you just for today then.
With those final words, Ensley left with a pale face.
Ah, that feels so much better.
Now in 5th grade, Miranda seems more mature than ever to me. She never used to complain, not because she didn't want to but because she didn't want to worry us. But now, it's different. Miranda isn't holding back tears anymore. She doesn't even feel the need to cry because she's become so strong and resilient. Looking at Miranda's serene profile, I couldn't help but feel a bit reflective. Maybe I've been too worried about her. With the sole intention of not letting her feel lonely, I quit my job to always be there for her. But it seems Miranda is fine now. Without me realizing, she has grown up and surrounded herself with many strong allies. Lately, she's been bringing school friends home more frequently.
What? Is there something on my face?
Miranda noticed my gaze and looked at me questioningly. Yes, lots of happiness.
What? That makes no sense.
Laughing at my response, Miranda seemed amused. Feeling her growth, I decided to rejoin the workforce at an apparel company I had been invited to rejoin. Eleanor, I read the newspaper. Miranda did great, didn't she? Every time my coworkers mentioned it, I calmly responded, she probably doesn't think she did anything extraordinary. She just presented her life as it is. One evening, Miranda shared her future dreams with me.
I want to become a doctor. To help children and families suffering from diseases and disabilities like mine. Facing myself through my summer project made me think that. And I've been thinking lately, there are people who can't run fast, those who struggle with studies. Tall people, short people. My condition is just another trait among those.
Hearing her aspirations, I felt hopeful for her future.
Oh, and by the way, a boy in my class told me he likes me.
Miranda casually mentioned her dream and then shared this news. Reporting this to Dennis via video call, he panicked.
What? Isn't it too early for her to be in a relationship? Hey, are you okay with this?
Calm down, my dear husband. I calmed down the frantically panicking Dennis. The fact that a boy confessed to Miranda probably means that the kids around her have stopped caring about her condition. As for Ensley, I heard she was kicked out by Dennis and the in-laws. Ensley, who had been lazing around at home every day without working part-time, finally decided to become independent after losing financial support. In reality, she had no choice but to do so. Now, she struggles with living alone in a small, old apartment, earning a little from part-time work. The wish Miranda had for her summer project, to reduce ignorant and hurtful comments about diseases and disabilities, is also my wish. Of course, 1 or 2 actions alone won't change the world. But that's exactly why we, who know the struggles and pain, must continue to spread the truth to the world. I vowed in my heart to continue watching over Miranda, ensuring her growth isn't hindered. Dennis has decided to return from his assignment. Dennis convinced his boss to allow him to work predominantly remotely. I won't let you two feel lonely again, he said.
But then, you came back because you're worried Miranda might get a boyfriend, aren't you?
That's not the case, Dennis awkwardly responded. Anyway, we're back to living happily and closely as a family of 3. A family that's always full of laughter, our pride and joy. David, my husband, handed me the divorce papers with the same casualness as if he was passing me a piece of junk mail from a shop. Stunned by the abruptness of it all, I stood there dazed, staring at the filled-out divorce application. What's up? Need a pen? Wait a second. Divorce? What do you mean? He spoke in a tone that seemed to look down on me, then pulled out a cigarette from his chest pocket and lit it. I'm selling the hotel. I couldn't believe my ears. Selling our classic hotel that has been in the family for generations? It was true that Nancy, my mother-in-law and the hotel manager, had recently become bedridden due to illness. I've already started talks with a hotel group. Eventually, I'll earn income without having to lift a finger in the hotel business. Cool, huh? Wait. At least wait until Nancy gets better to talk about the hotel. And this divorce thing. David wore a scornful smile. I'll take the hotel's revenue and the staff with me. Wait. Let's be rational. At least let's wait until Nancy's condition improves and we've discussed the hotel, then we can talk about us. Trying to buy time? Fine, I'll leave for today. The decision about this hotel is mine to make anyway. After David left the office, I was left standing there, dumbfounded. The door opened. Thinking David had come back, I tensed up for a moment, but it was Nancy. Nancy, who had been bedridden in her pajamas until just this morning, was now standing in the plain dress she usually wore for work. She smiled gently, embraced my shoulder. I'm sorry, she whispered quietly. Now, it's my turn. There was a sophisticated, slightly mischievous smile I had never seen before. My name is Sarah. I had long aspired to work in the towering office buildings downtown and spent years trading imported wines and beers at a trading company. But now, I've moved a few years ago and work as a front office manager at the hotel run by David's family. There was hesitation in leaving my career in my mid-40s, but now I find fulfillment working at this hotel. It's a classic hotel that has been passed down for generations, set in a remote, mountainous location with a secretive charm. In spring, cherry blossoms bloom, in summer, the lush greenery, in autumn, the beautiful fall colors, and now, the season surrounds us with snow-covered trees. The landscape is all dyed in silvery white, with only the steam from the hot springs faintly dancing into the night sky. The first words I blurted out when I first visited the hotel with David were, "I'm anxious." After David's father, Richard, who originally ran the hotel, passed away, and Nancy was left alone, David and I ended up working at the hotel. When we got married, David would say, "One day, I want to take over the family hotel." I thought it was just a vent, something he said when work got tough, so I didn't take it seriously. But after Richard's death, David quit his job right away. The night he quit, without even a farewell party, David drank at home. He seemed happy, drinking cheap wine probably bought from a grocery store, and playing American mahjong on his mobile phone. I didn't quite get it, but David was engrossed in American mahjong on his phone, taking pride in climbing the ranks the more he played. Richard also loved American mahjong, and he had even created an American mahjong room during a hotel renovation. Though meant for guests, hotel staff would join in if needed to fill numbers. Hearing such stories, David was really looking forward to working at the hotel. Hoping to get an invitation to play from a guest, he would stand at the reception, smiling at middle-aged men who looked like they might enjoy American mahjong. But once he started working, it was too busy for any mahjong invitations. He was caught up with preparing dinner, setting up the baths, and helping wherever hands were needed. David's hotel duties were quite demanding. The job of a hotel manager, as I imagined it, seemed more glamorous, just welcoming guests with a smile. But surprisingly, there was a lot of behind-the-scenes work and a lot to learn, and I was struggling. Nancy, kind as she is, would gently guide me. The first thing she taught me was how to make small decorations. The little ornaments we placed beside the dishes we served to guests were all handmade by the staff. During breaks and between work, making these with other hotel staff became a way to bond, and I quickly grew close to them.
One day, I hope David and Sarah will take over this hotel. As long as I'm fit, I'll support you with all I have,"
said Nancy. She looked too young for her age, over 60, elegant, and beautiful with a smile. Years of her conduct seemed ingrained in her, every move she made felt like that of a hotel manager. Could I become a hotel manager like Nancy? I thought, looking at Nancy, my mother-in-law and the hotel manager, with admiration. Nancy seemed to appreciate my positive attitude and was very fond of me. One day, after about 2 months of me working as the front office manager and David as the owner in training.
"Sarah, I haven't seen David since around noon. Have you heard anything?"
Nancy asked me, looking a bit worried, as I was focused on the computer at the reception desk. She quickly checked the room reservations on her tablet. "I haven't seen him. Isn't he in the owner's room?"
We had planned to rotate David through different departments in the hotel to learn the owner's duties. Right now, he's assigned to odd jobs.
David is the owner's assistant and he's not doing his job?
It's embarrassing to admit, even though he's my son. He can't clean properly and always seems to find an excuse to escape. Sigh, really.
Nancy let out a small sigh. Even amidst our casual conversation, Nancy was efficiently managing guest information on her tablet. I checked my mobile phone, but there was no message from David.
"Sarah."
I looked up when she called my name. Nancy leaned in close, making sure other guests wouldn't notice, and said in a soft voice,
"I'm sorry. I'm feeling a bit chest pain. Would it be okay if I take a little break?"
"Yes, of course. Are you okay? Is there anything I can do?"
"I'll be fine. In my absence, you're the hotel manager. Sorry, and if you're unsure about anything, just contact me."
For a while after that, Nancy started spending more time lying down in the staff room and less time at the hotel. Sometimes she would come out of her room in casual clothes, saying,
"I'm feeling ill, going to the hospital."
Then she'd leave alone by car. Worried about Nancy's health, I visited her room several times after finishing my work. "How are you feeling?" But her responses were never positive. "I'm sorry. I've been to several hospitals, but they can't find the cause of this chest pain." Nancy apologized, looking remorseful. I managed to handle my duties as hotel manager as long as nothing too challenging came up. I felt I was communicating well with the staff, but no one mentioned David's absence, the future owner of the hotel. This made me anxious, thinking that maybe the staff had no expectations of David. That night, I decided to talk to David, who came home slightly drunk.
"What's with that scary face?"
"David, do you know that Nancy's been feeling unwell and hasn't been able to do much at the hotel?" "So, that's what this is about." David sat down on the sofa, looking exasperated. Our home, a bit away from the hotel, was originally Nancy and Richard's. Nancy hardly ever comes here now, staying mostly in her hotel resting room. Many of our boxes from the move were still unpacked. David sat cross-legged, using a cardboard box as a backrest. "Listen.
If Mom stays sick and can't move, then I'll have to handle staff schedules and oversee operations, right?"
"Of course. That's why you're getting guidance from Nancy, right?"
It's just not what I expected. Hey! Before you talk about things not meeting your expectations, you should actually show up at the hotel and do your work."
I was aware that I spoke in a somewhat harsh tone, but the next moment, David suddenly stood up angrily and glared at me, saying,
"Huh?"
It was so sudden that I let out a small scream.
"Eek!"
David then awkwardly left the room. The clock on the wall showed it was 10 p.m. David didn't return to the room that morning. He completely abandoned his hotel duties, and Nancy's health didn't improve. The days got colder, though no snow fell. As I was cleaning the hotel entrance, I heard a faint bird call from the stream nearby. I looked closer and saw something strange on a broken branch near the stream. It was about the size of a pigeon, mostly white from a distance, but up close, it had black and white zebra stripes. The bird, with its odd, chicken-like head, looking like a boy with bed hair, was gazing intently at the water. It was a kingfisher. As I admired this rare bird, the sound of a car climbing the hill startled it, and it quickly hid in the trees. It was David, getting out of the car in a suit. "Hey, just now, on the other side of the river, there was this amazing bird. I have something to talk about." David cut me off and led me to the break room. With the same casualness as if handing over junk mail from a shop, David handed me the divorce papers. I was stunned, staring blankly at the filled-out divorce application. David then took a ballpoint pen out of his suit pocket with a smirk. "What's wrong? Need a pen? Wait a minute. Divorce? What do you mean?" With a condescending attitude, David took out a cigarette from his chest pocket and lit it. "What are you? Ever since you started working at this hotel, you've become utterly uninteresting. Dull, boring. Just plain boring. You are boring." Boring? What does he mean by boring? As I struggled to find words, David sat down on a nearby pipe chair, looking up at me. I noticed a luxurious watch peeking from under his suit sleeve, one I had never seen before. Noticing my gaze, David stroked the watch band and looked at the calendar on the wall. "I'm selling the hotel." I couldn't believe my ears. Selling our ancestral classic hotel? David stated that with Nancy, the hotel manager, unable to return to work, the hotel's management would either collapse or place a tremendous burden on David as the owner. The most efficient solution, he explained, was to sell the hotel to a large hotel group, becoming part of their umbrella, and handing over the management. "I've already started talks with the hotel group. Eventually, I'll earn income without having to lift a finger in the hotel business." "Cool, huh? Wait a minute. At least let's talk about the hotel after Nancy's health improves, and then, this divorce thing." That's what I thought. Why should someone as great as me be married to such a plain woman? The more I thought about it, the more irritated I got. David, not listening to me at all, forced a pen into my hand and pushed me in front of the desk. "Sign it now," he whispered into my ear, pointing at the divorce application on the desk. Chills ran down my spine, and I impulsively pushed David away. He looked at me with a scornful smile. "I'll take the hotel's revenue and the staff with me." Wait, let's be rational. At least let's wait until Nancy recovers, finish discussing the hotel, and then talk about us? Trying to stall for time? Fine, I'll leave for today. The decision about this hotel is mine to make. David tapped the divorce application on the desk a few times as if to say, "Sign it. And tell Mom, if she can't work, she should stay somewhere else. This hotel isn't a nursing home for the elderly." After David left the office, I stood there, dumbfounded. The situation was so shocking that I couldn't tell if it was a dream or reality. The door opened. I tensed, thinking David had returned, but it was Nancy. She had been bedridden in her pajamas until this morning, but now stood in her usual plain work dress. Nancy hugged me as I stood there in shock. "I'm sorry." She apologized softly. "Now, it's my turn." A sophisticated, mischievous smile I had never seen before spread before me. Being gently patted on the head by Nancy, slightly shorter than me, brought a strange feeling. Eventually, Nancy patted my back lightly. "I'm truly sorry." She apologized again. "The truth is, my being ill was a lie." "What? A lie? Why would you do that?" "I apologize for testing you like this. But listen, Sarah." Nancy, ensuring no one else was listening, began to explain everything in a low voice. It turns out that Nancy had noticed David's suspicious behavior for months. She had heard that his reasons for going out were to meet with executives of a rival hotel group. She didn't know what it meant for him to meet with executives of a rival company, but she wanted to test him by pretending to be sick and bedridden. Nancy apologized repeatedly for putting such a burden on me as David abandoned his duties as the owner, pushing most of the work onto me. But now, finally, I see what truly needs to be protected. I'll make sure David takes responsibility for betraying us, both as a hotel successor and as a family member. After that, David didn't return home, and days went by without incident. A month passed, and the snow around the hotel began to melt. While cleaning the entrance, which had become my daily routine, I casually glanced towards the stream, wondering if I might see that rare kingfisher again. Every time I hear an unfamiliar bird call in the distance, I feel as if my heart is being cleansed. Perhaps this is a privilege of living in such a place. The anxiety I felt initially had vanished, and I had grown to love this hotel. I loved the hotel staff, Nancy as the hotel manager, and the scenery visible from here, everything. I gripped the broom I was holding tightly. Then I saw a familiar car climbing the hill. David got out of the car, which he had parked recklessly, and the first thing he said was,
"Hey! What's the meaning of this?"
I suggested calmly.
"Let's discuss it in the office."
I guided him there. Even he, mindful of the few guests inside the hotel, refrained from yelling impulsively. However, as soon as he entered the office, he started questioning me loudly.
"Hey, the deal to sell the hotel is off. What did you do?"
Nancy thoroughly investigated which company you were negotiating the sale with. So, I took the initiative to consider the future direction of our hotel. He looked puzzled. I laid out several documents from the office shelf onto the table. The neatly compiled documents detailed our hotel's financial status and specific business plans. Also, there were thick bundles of documents for presenting the benefits of partnering with the large hotel chain he had approached for sale. Not as a sale, but a partnership. He skimmed through one of the documents labeled contract.
"Wait, you managed to form a partnership with that major company? That's a huge benefit for our hotel."
Sarah is a very skilled negotiator. Nancy was leaning against the office wall, listening. David reread the contract and documents, biting his lip. Nancy and I had gone to the large hotel company he intended to sell to, explained the situation, and had the sale called off. Not only that, but we also presented the strengths of our hotel and the benefits of a partnership, securing a business partnership. My skills honed from years in corporate marketing came in handy. Inspired by the kingfisher I saw near the stream, I decided to aim for a concept of a hotel surrounded by birds. This involved planning the development of the untouched, secret-like location while being mindful of the bird's ecosystem. This idea came from my perspective as a hotel manager. Some guests who stayed at our secluded hotel wore binoculars, perfect for birdwatching, as many birds reside in these remote mountains.
A garden with a water feature and feeding station for the birds. But if we just scatter food, isn't that like keeping them, like a zoo?
We'll only feed them in winter. Birds struggle to find food then. Eventually, we plan to plant fruit-bearing plants around the hotel and use fruits and insects to establish a coexistence with the birds.
But that's quite a radical idea, isn't it? We're a hotel, not a bird sanctuary.
David fell silent. Both Nancy and I were giving him cold stares. After all his complaints about the hotel's management and talks of selling it, he had the nerve to criticize our carefully considered idea.
"David, I heard you were rude to Sarah. You have no place in this hotel anymore."
After Nancy spoke to David, both David and I fell silent. The ticking of the wall clock seemed unusually loud. David said nothing, just stared at the documents for a long time, and then sat down on the floor, resting his forehead in his hands.
"What have you done? Do you know why I decided to sell? I only saw a future of hardship in continuing this dilapidated hotel. A workplace with such long hours, it's going to be tough for Sarah too. David, let's sell it now. It's not too late. If we sell to an overseas investor, this place will become a hotel for foreigners. Most of the staff could be fired right after the sale, you know?
What?
Really? Are you sure that's not an exaggeration?
David looked at Nancy with a scared expression. Nancy nodded silently, affirming my point. Honestly, saying everyone would be fired after the acquisition was an exaggeration, but this kind of shock seemed necessary for David at the moment. For David, who grew up in this hotel, many of the staff were like relatives. Perhaps he also didn't want to trouble them.
This is a classic hotel that has lasted for hundreds of years. I want it to continue for much longer.
Prompted by my words, the office door opened, and the staff entered. The small office quickly filled with waitresses, chefs, receptionists, drivers, and other hotel employees. Everyone knew about the situation. Whether David was suitable as an owner or not was unclear, but his unilateral decision to sell the hotel was unacceptable to the other employees. Some were openly angry, while others looked at him with sadness. Faced with so many intense stares, he could only hang his head in silence.
I get it. I'll try harder as an owner. Well, the divorce papers have already been filed.
What? Wait.
If we're divorced, isn't it strange for Sarah to work at the hotel?
Right, Mom? David, seemingly delighted to have found a flaw in the story, questioned with a malicious smile. Nancy then pulled a photograph from her dress pocket. In the photo, David was arm in arm with a young woman wearing flashy makeup.
You've been infatuated with a young girl, piling up debts for her. That's why you were rushing to sell the hotel and get a divorce, right? I had someone investigate.
David clutched the photo, emitting a groan, then collapsed to the floor, holding his head.
Just wait. Am I really wrong? I don't understand, it doesn't make any sense.
One of the employees said.
Let's have the outsider leave.
A few people helped David up and took him out of the office. Left alone with Nancy, we exchanged glances and sighed deeply together. It's over, isn't it?
Yes. Sarah, I'd like you to continue as the hotel manager. Is that all right?
Remembering the behavior Nancy taught me as a hotel manager, I replied quietly.
Yes, with pleasure.
A year is about to pass since then. The hotel, managed by Nancy and me, is fully booked every day. Now that my divorce with David is finalized, our relationship isn't mother-in-law and daughter-in-law anymore. In this hotel, not only am I cherished by regular customers for maintaining its classic charm, but I also constantly strive to attract new clientele and enhance customer satisfaction. David, having betrayed his family, felt uncomfortable staying locally and has set off for the city. According to mutual acquaintances, he's living a transient life doing day labor, much like a migratory bird. I sincerely hope he leads a life that's meaningful to him. While constantly devising new hotel events and plans, what I value most is creating a workplace where employees feel fulfilled and satisfied with their jobs. Nancy, who was my mother-in-law, agrees, and we support each other like a real family. Currently, I'm learning hospitality techniques for foreign tourists from our partner hotel and excitedly looking forward to the hotel's future prospects. With the snow melting, spring is fast approaching. On the other side of the mountain near the stream, low-growing wild cherry trees are about to bloom. One of our guests, who was wearing binoculars, sparked a conversation about birdwatching. When I mentioned,
I saw a kingfisher near the hotel,
the guest smiled happily and said, That's amazing. Sometimes during my break, I sit by the stream, quietly passing time, feeling the breath of nature. I imagine a beautiful black and white bird flying out from between the lush trees, crossing my field of vision, as I watch the water flow for a long time. The stream, formed by melting snow and spring water from the mountains, looks endlessly beautiful, almost eternal. I never saw the kingfisher again after that chance encounter. Can you give me a hand, please? A new waitress at the hotel entrance calls me with a puzzled look. I stand up, pat my backside lightly, and jog back to the hotel. Behind me, unbeknownst, the kingfisher flies swiftly over the stream. My name is Sophie. I've been a housewife for 3 years now, married. My husband Tim works for a top-tier company as a businessman, and we live on the 20th floor of a high-rise apartment. The night view from our living room is incredibly beautiful, but being raised in the countryside, I initially wanted in a lower-floor apartment when we first got married. However, I agreed to accommodate my husband's wish to live in a high-rise. We both belonged to the same tennis club in college. Tim, 2 years my senior, was a leader, whereas I joined somewhat casually and was a rather inconspicuous member. Back then, Tim had a girlfriend, so we weren't that close during college. But, a couple of years after I graduated and started working at a law firm, I ran into Tim by chance at a bar. Feeling nostalgic, we chatted about old times and exchanged contact information. Both of us were single at the time, so we gradually began to date. Tim was as sociable as ever with a wealth of topics, and I often found myself listening to his stories. Working at a top-tier company, Tim faced a lot of stress, so dating me seemed to be a source of encouragement for him. After dating for about a year and a half, Tim proposed to me. I had just started my 3rd year at the law firm and acquired my paralegal certification, and I wanted to continue working even after marriage, but I earn enough for us to live comfortably. I want you, Sophie, to stay at home, he said, so I resigned from my job upon marrying him. I never disliked cooking or housekeeping, even when I lived alone, so I enjoyed my days as a housewife. With no financial worries and living in a high-rise, even my parents and friends envied me. So, I focused on making sure Tim could concentrate on his work, carefully planning meals with balanced nutrition and cleaning diligently every day. Then, one day, as Tim was enjoying his favorite hamburger steak at the dinner table, he cheerfully said,
"We've been invited to dinner by the couple living on the top floor."
"Eh? That stunningly handsome and beautiful couple who looks like celebrities?"
"Yeah, exactly. I sometimes see the husband at the gym downstairs. We're the same age, which surprised me."
Our high-rise has a community gym on the 2nd floor. I'm not fond of machine workouts and only occasionally go for yoga, but Tim, who loves exercise, goes 2 or 3 times a week.
"Really?
That intelligent-looking man with glasses?"
"Yeah. He's an IT company CEO, apparently. Well, living on the top floor, he must be doing well."
"Then, should we book a fancy restaurant for the dinner?"
"No, we've been invited to their place."
Tim explained that he bumped into the couple at the apartment entrance today and got invited.
"Sophie, they said they'd like you to come too."
"Is that okay? I've only exchanged brief greetings with them."
"It's an invitation, so why not? Besides, I'm curious about the top floor."
Tim, who can easily socialize with anyone, said. On the other hand, I, being shy, wasn't too keen on the idea. I wondered if it was just a polite gesture from them. But before I knew it, the plan became a reality, and we were visiting them this weekend. I brought some simple homemade dishes, but the couple had a professional chef cook for us. It was my first experience of such a luxury, so I felt overwhelmed. However, Wendy, the wife, was friendly and easy to talk to, and by the end of the meal, I felt as comfortable as with a friend. Excited, we talked about our experience. Even after returning from Wendy's place.
"I haven't had such a good chat in a long time. It was truly enjoyable."
Becoming a housewife meant I didn't get to see my friends as much, so meeting Wendy was a delightful event for me.
"Maybe you could go for lunch with her sometimes? Wendy doesn't seem to work every day. And having a chef at home, that's just on another level."
Wendy worked as a freelance designer, handling wallpaper and curtain designs, and seemed to have her own clientele, working at her own pace. "I often work from home, so let's have tea together sometime," she suggested as we were leaving.
"Yeah, she's as beautiful as a movie star, but so approachable and genuinely nice. I'd be happy to become friends with her." "Yeah, she really is beautiful. Probably the most beautiful woman I've ever met."
"Really? Saying that in front of me?"
No, it's different. Sophie, you're cute, right? It's a different type.
You don't have to explain so desperately. I know myself well enough. I made a slightly pouting face, but seeing Tim's wry smile, I burst into laughter. Seeing me laugh, Tim joined in. It had been a while since we had such a lively atmosphere, joking around. Maybe it was all thanks to meeting the Wendy couple. But little did I know then, this encounter would lead to an incredible challenge. Since then, Tim and I haven't visited Wendy's place together, but Wendy and I became close enough to frequently meet for lunch or tea. One of my worries was that Tim and I were unable to have children. I was considering fertility treatment but couldn't bring myself to discuss it with Tim. I could openly share these feelings with Wendy, though. Fertility treatment can be tough. Maybe it's okay to leave things to nature for a while? Yeah, maybe. But somehow, I feel like Tim isn't that keen on having children. I see. It's tough, isn't it, the feelings between a couple? In my case, it's the opposite. My husband wants kids, but I'm not so enthusiastic. Really? Yeah. I had a miscarriage before. After that experience, I thought maybe it's okay not to try to get pregnant again. Oh, I'm sorry. That was insensitive of me. No, don't worry about it. It's all in the past now. Seeing Wendy's smiling response, I thought how strong she was. You're right. I should just let nature take its course for a bit. I need to cherish the happiness I have now. Wendy's expression seemed to cloud over for a moment as she looked at my smiling face. Shall we head back? I have a design I need to think about by tomorrow. I nodded to Wendy's always graceful demeanor, wondering if I had just imagined that brief change. But from that day on, every time we met, Wendy seemed to be getting thinner. One day, concerned, I asked her, Wendy, is something troubling you? I might not be able to solve it, but I'm here to listen if you want. Thank you. Actually, my husband and I are talking about divorce. What? I was speechless with shock. They had seemed so happy when Tim and I visited their home. What could have happened? Sophie, you're the only one I can talk to. What should I do? Wendy began to speak slowly, tears in her eyes. It seems my husband really wanted children. We've had arguments before, but I never imagined he was having an affair. According to Wendy, her husband was involved with a colleague at work. He had told her he would pay compensation for a divorce. Can you believe it? Before we were married, other men proposed to me too. He worked so hard every day to win me over, and now he wants to leave? What am I supposed to do now? It's shocking. I shouldn't interfere in your marriage, but maybe you should talk to your husband again? While feeling a bit uneasy about Wendy's situation, I chose my words carefully to avoid hurting her. After pouring her heart out to me, she whispered, Things will surely work out. And then Wendy left. That evening at dinner, I opened up to Tim about Wendy and her husband's situation. How is Wendy's husband doing lately? That's the thing, I haven't seen him recently. He hasn't been at the gym for about a week now. Is that so? But he didn't seem like the type to cheat. What are you talking about? It's always the serious, intellectual types that turn out to be the worst. Initially, Tim had praised him for being an IT company CEO, but his sudden change of attitude made me feel uneasy. Within a month, Wendy came to tell me they were getting a divorce. Oh, what should I say? It's okay. I've come to terms with it. For now, I'll be staying here. Alone? Yes. I arranged that as part of the conditions of the divorce. Kind of like a compensation. Seeing Wendy so nonchalant about it scared me. Can people really change this much in such a short time? Still, knowing it wasn't my place to comment on their decision, I continued my friendship with Wendy as before. However, not long after this incident, cracks began to appear in my own marriage with Tim. Tim started coming home later than before and often went out on weekends. He claimed he was working overtime or attending business drinking parties, but sometimes he wouldn't contact me until after midnight, and I had to confront him about it.
Tim, I understand that work is busy, but isn't it too much lately?
What do you mean? What are you trying to say? Is it really just work?
What else would it be? Of course, it's work. Then, at least let me know when you'll be late. I prepare meals and everything. Huh. Sometimes, a sudden client dinner comes up. I have more responsibilities at work now. Being a housewife who plays at home, you wouldn't understand.
I was half astonished by Tim's selfish reasoning. Wasn't it Tim who wanted me to stay home in the first place? I thought I was making our daily life comfortable for him. Ignoring my opinion, Tim just walked away to his bedroom. We had started sleeping in separate bedrooms a few months ago, per Tim's request. I need proper sleep for work, he had said, but our intimate life had also disappeared, making me suspect he might be seeing someone else. Tired of having negative thoughts at home every day, I considered returning to work. So, I discussed this with Wendy.
It's not just me going through this, huh?
I haven't confirmed he's cheating, but I'm tired of suspecting him every day. That's why I'm thinking of going back to my old job.
That sounds good. I think you should work. Besides, I have a feeling Tim might have found someone else.
Wendy's words about someone else stuck in my mind.
Maybe, but until I hear it from him, I've decided not to press the issue anymore.
Wendy, thanks for listening. I'll try my best to get back into employment. Wendy nodded slowly, giving me her usual graceful smile. The next day, I went to the law firm where I used to work. There, I found out that Georgie, the lawyer I used to work for as a paralegal, had left the firm. Apparently, he had opened a detective agency a year ago. He was the one who taught me various job skills since my first year as a professional. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that it was thanks to him I became a paralegal. Wanting to discuss my future career, I decided to visit his detective agency.
Georgie, long time no see. Surprised you came all this way. It's been a while, hasn't it? Since your wedding, so about 3 years?
It's been that long already. You helped me so much.
No problem. So, what brings you here today? What happened?
As I discussed my intention to return to work, I ended up honestly sharing my marital troubles and suspicions that my husband might have a mistress.
Our office is a detective agency, quite different from your previous job. How about working here? Really? Yeah, we're actually short-handed and we're just thinking of hiring someone. We've been quite busy since we started, receiving investigation requests from the law firm I used to work at. Income is more than double what I earned as a lawyer. I can offer you a similar salary to before. Of course, this job isn't always pleasant. There are times when the pay doesn't even add up to $3 an hour.
Georgie, you're incredible. But why did you decide to quit being a lawyer?
Maybe I wanted to change my life,
Georgie said, looking distant as if recalling those days. Then, looking me straight in the eyes, he continued.
I think it's important for you to start a new life by investigating Tim and uncovering the truth.
Something inside me seemed to overflow at his words. Nodding.
I'll pay the investigation fee, please do it,
I quickly replied. The next day, I met Wendy at our usual cafe for lunch and told her about my new job. I didn't mention it was a detective agency, just said it was an investigation office opened by my former boss.
The pay might be less than $3 an hour for some tasks, but I feel like I can utilize my previous experience. I'll give it my best. That's great. I'm rooting for you. I'm thinking of going on a trip tomorrow for a change of scenery. You've been through a lot, Wendy. Enjoy your trip. Thank you.
Wendy responded with an even brighter smile than usual. That was the last day I saw my friend Wendy. A few days later, Georgie called me in to report the investigation results, and I was in disbelief. Tim's mistress was Wendy. Their affair had been going on for over a year. That meant they were already involved when our families had a dinner together. I can't believe it. Wendy was so kind, listening to all my troubles.
Probably just a fling at first. But Wendy's husband must have noticed. Inviting you over might have been a warning to Tim. I don't know what Wendy told you, but her husband is a serious man, not the type to have affairs.
Unbelievable. I was so shocked I couldn't say anything more.
There's plenty of evidence. You could get a significant amount of compensation. Tim's on a business trip now, right?
Yes. After managing to reply, something struck me, and I looked at Georgie. He nodded solemnly, placing a photograph in front of me. It showed Tim and Wendy entering a resort hotel together. They were on a trip. Eventually, Tim and I divorced. I didn't ask for compensation. Instead, I cited irreconcilable differences as the reason of the divorce. Leaving the house, I started working, renting a room in the building of the detective agency. Tim and Wendy remarried without any remorse.
Are you really okay with this?
Georgie asked me, but for me, it was all according to plan. However, I never thought I'd witness it with my own eyes. A year later, I unexpectedly ran into my ex-husband, Tim.
It's been a while. How's work going? I heard it's like $3 an hour.
Well, keep at it. He spoke in a mocking tone, and I replied,
After a year, you still know nothing. What do you mean? Why don't you ask Wendy?
Tim left with a look of dissatisfaction, but that night, he called me in a frenzy.
Did you know about this?
Know what?
That Wendy is buried in debt.
Wendy had always been a big spender. Though she claimed to be a designer, she didn't really make much.
I knew. I knew you were involved with her for over a year while still married to me.
Oh, and one more thing.
While you were dating her, she miscarried a child from another boyfriend. That's a lie, right? You knew everything and still married her because you loved her, right?
Good luck with that. Bye. I hung up and immediately blocked Tim's number.
You finally put a period in that chapter of your life. You did well.
Georgie, who had overheard the conversation, spoke to me gently. I couldn't hold back my tears. It was the first time I cried since the divorce. Georgie, without saying a word, just held me. After that, Georgie and I became the best partners, both in work and personal life. Apparently, he had been in love with me since we first met. Now, I love him very much too. Tim, on the other hand, ended up filing for bankruptcy because he couldn't pay off Wendy's huge debts. He couldn't stay at his company and now works for a delivery service.
This isn't what I signed up for.
He spends his days dealing with Wendy, who constantly complains. They betrayed people without a second thought, but will they ever realize the consequences of their actions?
Thanks for taking care of my daughter this past month. I'll come pick her up tomorrow. What are you talking about?
Sherry, my sister-in-law, who had been traveling for a month, seemed still to be at the airport, as I could hear the sound of boarding announcements through the phone. In contrast to my calm response, she began to panic.
Wait, what? No, what are you talking about? She's there, right? I left Daisy in your condo's garage.
Daisy is her daughter, my niece.
I haven't seen her. What are you talking about? Don't play dumb. I sent you a text, so you know. I haven't received any text. You're lying. I know you're lying. Don't play with me.
Sherry screamed over the phone, panicking.
What are you going to do about it? I left Daisy with you. You're responsible if anything happens.
After hanging up once, Sherry tried calling Daisy's child safety phone, but not being able to reach her, she continued to panic. She called me back, even more frantic, so I suggested she might want to go home first.
You're right. That's a good idea.
Upon her return home, she found her husband Leon, Daisy, and me, the three of us together. Sherry seemed to want to ask why the three of us were together.
Sherry, I've just been hearing all about it from these two. What?
At Leon's words, she turned pale. My name is Bonnie, and until a few years ago, I worked a regular office job. Upon turning 40, I became independent and started working as a freelance illustrator. With the increase in income, I now live alone in a condo. My work is primarily home-based, and I only leave the house for essential errands like going to the grocery store or meetings with clients. I'm not married, nor do I have a partner, but I'm satisfied with my life. Friends sometimes ask if I'm lonely, but I've never thought about it that way. I'm more fulfilled by my work and have no plans to look for a partner. I do worry about old age a little, but I think to myself, I'll cross that bridge when I get to it, to which I'm surprised at my own optimism. Today, after meeting a deadline for an illustration, I took a break at 3 p.m. and looked at the calendar. Then, I realized that my brother Leon's birthday was coming up soon. Leon, 5 years my senior, works in sales at a major publishing company and often goes on long business trips. Sometimes, he brings back souvenirs from his travels. Last month, he dropped by and brought some cookies as a souvenir, so I let him in, made some coffee, and we enjoyed the cookies together.
I keep telling you, you don't need to bring anything for me. Buy more for Sherry and Daisy. But I need to see your face from time to time. Don't want to find you laying on the floor.
Leon has always been like this, considerate or meddlesome, but it's one of his good traits. Sherry and Daisy are his wife and daughter, therefore my sister-in-law and niece. I haven't told Leon, but I find Sherry a bit difficult to get along with. She's very bright and always dresses fashionably, with her nails done and in the latest trends, giving off a very glamorous impression. It's not that I mind that, but she often looks down on me for being single. At a family gathering at Christmas, she laughed upon learning I had neither a partner nor a love interest. Hey, are you the type who thinks you can afford to wait because you're always young and beautiful? Don't you know about the marriage boat?
I think marriage and romance vary by individual. It's not necessary to have a partner.
She laughed again at my response. I couldn't tell if it was the alcohol or what, but she kept teasing me about the same thing, and it became tiring to deal with. When choosing a condo to live alone, being away from Leon's family was definitely a criterion. That's how much I was fed up with her. However, I got along well with my niece Daisy. She turned 10 this year and seems to go to school carrying a cute light blue backpack. I haven't seen her in it, but she told me about it when she came to visit.
Bonnie, you're so good at drawing.
Daisy, who had been watching me work on illustrations, was impressed and stared at the drawing on the computer screen.
Wow, I wish I could draw too. Oh, want to try? Really?
Yeah, there's still plenty of time before the deadline, so you can have a go. Daisy sat in front of the computer and excitedly started moving the pen. What she drew on the screen was her light blue backpack. She mentioned it was heavy because she also carries a tablet in it. Considering it's even heavier with a water bottle in the summer, I was really impressed by how strong she was despite her small size. According to Daisy, Sherry spends her days as a housewife, and when Leon is away on business trips, she does whatever she pleases. For dinner or lunch on days when school is out, they eat frozen meals or pizza delivery. I'm the one who always does the laundry, and Mom only does it once in a while.
Really?
Yeah, and she gets really mad when my shoes are muddy after PE.
Why? What does Mom do at home?
She's always on her phone or watching TV. Daisy tries not to upset her mom by staying in her room or going out to the park or the library. Hearing this makes me wonder about parenting, but it's tricky to know if it's my place to say anything. There was another time when the family gathered, and I saw Sherry scolding at quiet Daisy harshly. I think Daisy had spilled some tea, but I thought it wasn't something to get so mad about. It could easily be wiped up with paper towels. Mom is scary. She gets mad at everything I say, so I just keep quiet. Daisy's offhand remark about her mom as she was leaving, after drawing her light blue backpack, stuck with me like a splinter. I remembered that day was a sunny weekend, and Sherry had left Daisy with me because she was going on a day trip with her mom friends. I never imagined receiving a similar text on my mobile phone just a few days later. The autumn leaves in the nearby park had deepened, and it was getting to the point where you missed the warmth of the sun. That kind of coldness had arrived. When I returned to my condo after running a small errand, I saw the silhouette of a girl standing alone by the parking lot. She was wearing a light blue backpack, and I was surprised to recognize her face.
Daisy?
When I called out to her, her anxious eyes looked up at me. It was indeed Daisy.
What are you doing here all alone? And what's with the luggage?
Next to her was a small carry-on case, making it look as though she had run away from home.
Mom said to go to your house.
Seeing my confusion, Daisy gestured towards my bag, saying, on the mobile phone. Perhaps there was a text on my mobile phone. I hurriedly took out my phone from my bag, and indeed, there was a text from Sherry, albeit recently.
Bonnie, sorry for the sudden request. I'm going on a trip with a friend for a month starting today. Please take care of my daughter.
After reading it, an inarticulate exclamation escaped my lips, but I quickly closed my mouth. Of course, it was out of confusion, but considering Daisy was probably just as bewildered, we decided to go inside. Once inside, Daisy's cheeks were as red as apples, and her hands were very cold. I made her some hot cocoa to warm up a bit and offered her some snacks while listening to her story. Up until a short while ago, Daisy had been drawing in her notebook in her room. Sherry entered Daisy's room without knocking, handed her a carry-on case, and said,
Daisy, get ready, we're going to Bonnie's house. Mom won't be home for a month, so bring your backpack, okay? Understood?
Okay. Thus, Daisy quickly packed her notebook, pencil case, textbooks, and tablet into her backpack. During this time, Sherry was on the phone, seeming quite restless.
Really? That's great. Don't tell me, are you drinking already? It's too early.
Sherry's voice was high-pitched and filled the house. Hearing her mother's unusual laughter from downstairs, Daisy covered her ears. After the phone call ended, Sherry's voice returned to normal, and then Daisy was left at that place with her luggage. When Daisy got out of the car, Sherry explained to her.
Be good, I'm leaving you with Bonnie for a month.
She was told to wait here and had been waiting under the cold sky. Despite the sunlight, it was quite a cold season. Thinking about what would have happened if Daisy had caught a cold made me feel a rising anger at the situation.
But does Dad know about this?
I don't think so. Mom doesn't seem to contact Dad much. She told me so as she munched on chocolate cookies. While I thought how cute she looked with cookie crumbs on her cheeks, I felt it was wrong not to inform Leon and decided to call him later.
Bonnie, I don't want to be with Mom anymore.
Suddenly, Daisy said this while staring at the rim of her juice glass. The girl who had been happily eating cookies now had a troubled look, far too mature for her age.
Why? Because Mom gets angry easily, and she throws things at me, like the trash can. I hate it.
The trash can?
I haven't done anything wrong. She says I'm in the way, tells me to get lost, and throws things. My teachers at school won't believe me either. I can't stand it.
Tears were streaming down her face. It must have been very hard for her, as she continued to cry, and I spent the time soothing her back and offering tissues until she calmed down. Clearly, what was happening to her was not normal. Convinced of this, I decided to call Leon to see if he could come back and help. Stepping away for a bit where Daisy couldn't see, I pondered how to explain the situation to him, then an idea came to me.
All right, this might work.
I murmured softly and dialed Leon's number.
What? Daisy? Yeah, what did you say?
Leon seemed quite shaken as he listened to the story, his voice trembling slightly. At first, he joked, saying it must be a prank, not funny, but as I continued, he believed me and listened seriously. When I shared my idea for a plan I had come up with, Leon agreed to it, saying he would take time off work to help.
All right then, please take care of it. Don't worry, Daisy is in good hands.
I hung up, then quietly deleted the text from Sherry from my mobile phone. Looking towards the living room, I wondered if Daisy had calmed down and quietly went back. I should splurge a bit and treat her to something delicious tonight. With that in mind, I slowly returned. The school Daisy attends is a bit far from here, but I explained the situation to the school and arranged for her to take the bus. This way, carrying her heavy backpack, including her tablet, would be a bit easier. Planning to bill Leon for the bus fare later, I continued my work from home during the day. Daisy doesn't have any extracurricular activities, so she comes home right after school to do her homework.
Bonnie, can you check my homework?
I was surprised. Isn't that what teachers are for? But according to Daisy, it was different.
All my classmates have their moms check. I always did it myself.
Realizing Sherry had always put herself first, I picked up a red pen. After checking her homework, it was time to prepare dinner. When I stood in the kitchen, Daisy followed, saying with her eyes, "I want to help. Today we're making meatloaf, so could you start by peeling the onions?"
Sure.
Daisy was surprisingly quick at peeling onions, and she efficiently followed directions to help cook. I wondered where she learned to cook so well, but there was no time to ask as the meal was ready before I knew it. As these days repeated, we enjoyed our time together, and before we knew it, a month had passed. Looking at the calendar, I anticipated Sherry's call, and sure enough, it came.
Bonnie, thanks for taking care of my daughter this past month. I'll come to pick her up tomorrow.
What are you talking about? I replied calmly. Sherry, who had been traveling for a month, seemed still to be at the airport, as I could hear boarding announcements through the phone.
Wait, what? No, what are you talking about? She's there, right? I left Daisy in your condo's garage.
I haven't seen her. What are you talking about?
Don't play dumb. I sent you a text, so you know.
I haven't received any text. Are you sure you're not mistaken?
You're lying. I know you're lying. Don't play with me.
Sherry, seemingly panicked, screamed over the phone.
What are you going to do about it? I left Daisy with you. You're responsible if anything happens. I'll call Daisy to see what's up.
With a sharp tone, she angrily hung up the phone. After a while, another call came in, and Sherry was yelling again. Sherry tried calling Daisy's child safety phone, but not being able to reach her, she continued to panic.
Sherry, why don't you go home and calm down first? That's true. You're right. I'll go home now.
After that, there was a forgotten hang-up, and voices arguing could be heard, Sherry and presumably a man, but it was too far to make out clearly. The room returned to silence, ominously quiet as if before a storm. When Sherry finally came home, her footsteps thundered down the hall. Entering the living room, her face went from a demonic frenzy to a pale shock. It was because she found all three of us in the living room, Leon, Daisy, and me. Sherry's mouth moved as if to ask why the three of us were together, but no sound came out.
Sherry, I've heard everything from these two. And about that call earlier. What?
I put the phone on speaker so we could all hear. I thought it would make it easier to discuss what comes next. By the way, Daisy's child safety phone was turned off, so it was natural that Sherry couldn't reach her.
How could you do this? That's my line. I said I didn't know earlier, but we've been taking care of Daisy for a month. How could you just leave her at someone's house and go off on a trip suddenly? I sent a text about it. That's not the point.
Leon carefully chose his words and spoke calmly. Let's all calm down. Daisy is here too. Sherry, it's true you left Daisy and went on a trip by yourself. Your attire and luggage look like you've just returned. Sherry was dressed in a warm coat and stylish outdoor clothes. With lots of luggage, perhaps from shopping for souvenirs and clothes, her carry-on looked full. Without denying, Sherry started making excuses.
Yes, I went on a trip. I just wanted a break from being a housewife. The laundry, cooking, it's all the same every day. I was stressed. It's not too much to ask to go out with friends. Is this the friend you're talking about in these emails?
I presented several sheets of paper. They contained email exchanges between Sherry and what appeared to be her affair partner, discussing plans for their trip. Dating back to last spring and even on the day I took care of Daisy for one day. The supposed day trip with mom friends was a lie. Sherry covered her mouth as if realizing her mistake. Actually, a few hours before Sherry arrived, At Daisy's request, I had looked through Sherry's computer and found these emails in her mailbox. Daisy had noticed her mom frequently texting someone not her dad and suspected the affair. Her suspicion turned to certainty when she saw texts from an unknown man on her mom's phone while she slept. Also, when Sherry was on the phone, she could occasionally hear the other person's voice, but it wasn't her dad's voice. I heard from Daisy 6 months ago that Sherry was having an affair. I had been skeptical until Sherry suddenly announced her trip a month ago, but after checking the computer, I realized Daisy's intuition was right. You could see Leon was visibly shaken.
What have you done? I trusted you, and you leave Daisy with Bonnie to go on a trip for an affair?
Leon confronted Sherry with a trembling fist.
It's a misunderstanding. I was forced to go on that trip by him. Forced? You left your family for a month for that? Come up with a better excuse. I was threatened. Believe me, Daisy, you believe me, right?
Daisy, suddenly addressed, responded calmly and plainly.
Mom, you were so happy on the phone before you left. And you made me do all the cooking and cleaning while you just slept and lazed around.
Daisy glared with her lips pursed.
And you tell me not to stay up late, but you'd go out at night and come back in the morning to sleep on the floor. Everything you said was inconsistent.
Hearing this, Leon pressed further.
Going out at night? You were partying? It's not like that. Daisy, stop talking.
I quickly showed Leon the photo on my mobile phone. It was a photo captured of Sherry, who was dressed up and heading out late at night.
Several months ago, I got a call from Daisy, and since I happened to be nearby, I took this photo, but I was surprised too. Where were you trying to go at that late an hour, Sherry? Oh!
She was confronted with the photo, and perhaps realizing she could no longer make excuses, slumped down right there.
I can't believe it. I can no longer entrust Daisy to you. Let's get divorced. I'll demand alimony. From now on, you're free to be with that other man.
Leon said so with his shoulders drooping and then turned his back on Sherry.
What? A divorce? You're kidding, right? Why? Don't you feel sorry for Daisy not having her mom around? What about you, Daisy? Come on, help Mom out. No, absolutely not. Bonnie feels more like a mom.
I felt very embarrassed as an adult to see Sherry cry to her own child, but Daisy brushed her mom off. While I was taking care of Daisy, I made time for her as much as possible, discussing school, hobbies, future dreams, and various other topics. Of course, cooking together was one of those things.
Sherry, don't worry. I'll make sure Daisy is happy,
I said with a smile, and Sherry hung her head dejectedly, saying nothing more. 6 months later, her divorce from Leon was finalized, and custody went to Leon. Sherry, dragged by her parents, went back to her hometown. The man she had an affair with, whom she met on the internet, disappeared as soon as he found out about the divorce, and communication was cut off. By the time she realized she was just played, it was too late, leaving her with a hefty alimony and child support bill. Her savings were far from enough, and she managed to make the payments by having her parents bear more than half the burden. However, that led to stricter surveillance from her parents, and she could no longer go out late at night. Moreover, the rumor that she got divorced and came back home without her daughter spread throughout the neighborhood, and she was met with cold stares when walking outside during the day, so she rarely left the house. Still, she couldn't remain unemployed forever, so she would have to re-enter society at some point, but what happened after that is unknown to me, Leon, nor Daisy. Leon and Daisy have moved out of their original home to rent it to someone else and are now living on a different floor of the condominium where I live. They plan to use the rental income for loan repayments and savings for Daisy. I've started visiting them almost every day. Leon, who was often away on business trips and couldn't be near Daisy, regretted not being able to pay more attention to his family and focusing too much on work, decided to change jobs. Changing jobs in his 40s was supposed to be a challenge, but his sales performance was excellent, and his communication skills were high, so it was not surprising that he could have held a position of some responsibility. Therefore, his job search did not drag on too long, and 6 months, he received job offers from 2 or 3 companies and starting work at one of them. I was surprised that Leon had such abilities, but what surprised me more was that he preferred outside sales at his previous company and gently declined promotion offers. It wouldn't be interesting to stay on the same company floor all the time.
For that reason? But the new job is fully remote, right?
Yes, but talking with various people is interesting in its own way. Most importantly, being with Daisy is the best. Daisy is still going to school with her light blue backpack. Moving changed her school district, requiring Daisy to transfer schools. Though it must have been sad to say goodbye to her friends and teachers, Daisy seemed surprisingly calm, even enjoying her new school life.
Daisy, have you gotten used to your new school?
I asked while making dinner together, and Daisy smiled.
Yeah, I made a friend in the class next door.
Already? That was fast. Daisy nodded shyly.
Yeah, next time, I'm going to make meatloaf at their house.
That sounds fun.
Yup.
Seeing her smile like a blooming flower made me smile too. Her dream is to open a restaurant. Thinking it's solid for a 10-year-old to have such a dream, Daisy shared her reason.
That friend, like me, doesn't have a mom who cooks, so she cooks herself. She said she wants to cook for people who don't have someone to cook for them, like us. Is that so?
I hope I can be like that too. So, I'm practicing making meatloaf. Her innocent laughter made me feel a complex emotion for a moment, but I quickly smiled back.
That's great, Daisy. Your meatloaf is delicious. I want many people to taste it.
Thanks. Seeing Daisy looking forward with such earnestness made her seem incredibly strong and shining. Her dream will not end in fantasy or delusion. I'm looking forward to the day when Daisy grows up and opens her restaurant.